so we can post it later to the AIM website. All right, so the Head Start webinar for the beginning of year process is essentially, it's similar to the end of year process. There isn't a whole lot different other than just checking that your enrollments are good to go for the year. Before I get too further in, go ahead and interrupt me if you have questions. You can use the chat feature, but I don't always spot it right away because I'm usually reading above it. So feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in if you need to ask any questions. This webinar will be located on the OPI AIM website under AIM webinars. And I'll have it posted for you under this top blue bar, and it will be linked in at the top here. So I have the OPI's, the AIM Head Start user guide brought up here. You can find that under the AIM user tab. If you go to user guides by topic and scroll down to Head Start user guide. If you want to just to have a, to look at it, an enrollment user guide, like how to enroll students in AIM, we do have that here as well. So you're welcome to look at that one if your questions are pertaining just to like how to use the student locator, for example. But that information is also located inside the Head Start user guide. So essentially what I have here is a test site. And what I want to do is just run through the process of making sure that your new calendar is set up for the new school year, the 21-22 school year, and then making sure your enrollments are entered. Now, normally for the other districts, we have a tool called the Enrollment Roll Forward Wizard. I don't actually recommend for your purposes that you use it. I think that it would cause more work for you to use it than to not. So what I would recommend is pulling up your enrollments. I would recommend, first of all, creating the calendar. Once the calendar is created, pull up your enrollments for the 2021 school year, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, and end date them all with end statuses. And then while you're there, go through that same list and create a new enrollment for any returning kiddos, because some of your kids may be returning to PK this year, and some may be moving on to kindergarten. So that's how I would recommend. That's how I would do it if I was at the district level, at your level, setting up calendars and creating enrollments. So this user guide would walk you through that process, essentially creating the new school calendar and then creating enrollments. So Head Start, it's a federally funded comprehensive child development program that has served low-income families since 1965. This is just a brief history on the programs. We've covered this before in previous webinars, but I'm trying to think if there's anything here pertinent. Other than what we need for federal reporting is what's required in the red enrollment fields when you enroll a student. There's demographic information that's required, and that's what we need essentially. And those elements are in red. So it's the date of birth, name, and then the race, ethnicity info. So we have a table of contents here for you. This is just the Infinite Campus navigation basics. This is, if you're new to Infinite Campus, this is just to help you familiarize with what these features are when you first sign into campus, like the toolbar at the top, the index search tabs, and then your main workspace. And this breaks down those elements even further. For example, the toolbar, which houses your years and your school calendars. And then index and search outline. And I'll walk through those here if you're new to that. And then other features on the green bar, other buttons that may be relevant to you. So then what you want to do is jump into creating your new year calendars. So I'll walk through this step by step in my test site. So let's say you've just signed in, and let's say you don't see your toolbar. The year in the calendar is not visible. you'd want to come over here to this arrow, and then that toolbar will be visible. So that's where it's hiding if you ever sign in and you don't see it. Year is the year that you're looking at as far as data goes. So this school has its 21-22 calendar already set up. So if yours does not, this wouldn't be visible. It would just end at 2021. And then from your school list, you should see your school or Head Start name. And then the calendar tied to it. So we're going to come in here to the index and go down to System Administration and go to Calendar Wizard. And what you want to do is create new calendars by rolling forward selected data. It's going to copy certain elements from last year to help just reduce the amount of information that you have to put inside the calendar. It should prompt you to enter the next year coming up, so 21-22. It should set that for you automatically. The name template should be in this format, so don't change that. Calendar will always be 1. Your start and end date for the calendar is always going to be the fiscal dates of the school year. So the fiscal start date is always July 1st of whatever year you're in, so 2021. The end date would be the fiscal end date for the school year, which is 6/30/2022. People get these dates confused with dates of instruction. The way that enrollments work, enrollments live inside of a calendar. So enrollments have instruction start dates, start and end dates. The calendar has to go beyond the enrollment date in order to fit the enrollments. So you'd want this calendar timetable, these start and end dates, to always be one full year calendar from starting July 1st to June 30th, so that your enrollments can fit inside of those dates. If some of this is not making sense, just let me know and I can rephrase it or explain it differently. And then what you want to do is come over here to select calendars to roll. Just select your 2021 calendar from last year. Now, depending on how last year was set up, you might have multiple Head Starts in there. You may or may not. I think we helped you last year getting them going. But what you want to do is just pick one of them. You don't want to roll forward a bunch of them, because what we're going to do is rename it anyway. We can rename the calendar to be whatever your current Head Start name is. So just pick one of your last year calendars to roll forward. And then click Next. And then what you want to do is click through here. A lot of this data doesn't even exist for Head Starts, but we do want to make sure that grade levels copy forward and some other calendar attributes. So just click through here and click at all the boxes that it will let you, all the way down. And then click Run Wizard. It's going to give you a progress box, and when it's done, it'll say complete. Then all you need to do is click on this refresh button inside your browser, and then you'll have the 21-22 calendar year showing up. So that's how you would create the calendar for the new school year. Now let's go to that 21-22 school year and go to calendar. And then it's gonna be blank if you've got all schools selected, because this is calendar information tied to calendar. So you want to select the actual school that you've created and the calendar you've created. You see, this one has a duplicate because I just created that calendar. So that's why it has a 1 after it. If you ever accidentally create a duplicate calendar, in this case like this, all you need to do is click on the duplicate calendar, and then under System Administration, go to Calendar, and then click Mark for Deletion. It's going to say reason, just created an error. Click Mark Calendar, and then come down here beyond Calendar tab and go to Delete Calendar. And then any calendars you've marked for deletion will be in this menu here, right there. You just click it, and then there's 4 steps here to follow. You move my bar out of the way. You just click next and just click next all the way through until it deletes it for you. So if you accidentally create duplicate calendars, that's how you can get rid of them.
Got it.
All right, so let's say that this 21-22 calendar we've just created, you can see those start and end dates are there for the calendar dates. That's good. The calendar number is there. What we want to do is, let's say we want to rename this. Let's say you've had 2 or 3 Head Start programs last year, but you've only got 1 that you want to name this year. So you can change the name to that program to say, let's say it's Adams Northwest Head Start. You could change it like that, or you can just you could spell it out and then just click save. And now it should pop up here as a change. So now we've got our calendar renamed for the school. Now the calendar, we're going to go down and check the grade levels and make sure that that's set up correctly, because that was copied forward from last year's. So we're going to go down to System Administration, Calendar, and we're on the Calendar tab. So that's where we just changed that name for the calendar. The next tab over is the Grade Levels tab. Now, since you copied the data forward, it should only have a PK grade level in here. You shouldn't see 9, 10, 11, 12. This is a high school. So that was copied forward from this previous high school's calendar. So you should only have the PK grade level. If you do not have it, click New, and then this grade level detail box will open, and then you can enter PK, sequence number, just put 0. State grade level code. You want it mapped to pre-K, pre-kindergarten, and then click save. So you should see that in your grade level editor. If you don't see it, click New and add it. If you do have it there and you rolled it forward, just click on it and make sure that that PK state level grade code map is mapped to PK level. Just double check that. Next tab over is schedule structure. It should say 1. Nothing to do there. And then the final thing to look at is the terms tab. Terms tab should just be full year. If it says nothing, if this is blank, you can click on create new term schedule terms and just click on full year, 1 term, and then click on create terms. And what it does is it will take you to this box here. And what you want to do is enter, this is where your instruction dates are going. So the calendar tab houses the calendar start date and end dates, which is the fiscal year. The terms tab is now where you're going to enter your days of instruction for your enrollments. So Y and 1 are always, that should automatically populate. You can leave those as they are. The terms name is full year, and then start and end dates. So your first day of instruction and the last day of instruction go in these fields. If you enter, for example, June 9th in here, because that's when you're planning on, or you're assuming that's the last day of school. But then you go to a child's enrollment and you enter 6/10 because it went on a day longer. The enrollment will not let you save that end date as 6/10 because it goes beyond these term dates. So if you have a change in instruction start and end dates, you'll need to change it under your calendar tab under the terms tab. So if that changes throughout the school year, if it becomes shorter or longer, change it here, click save, and then you can modify your enrollments. So those are the elements that you need for your calendar. That's it. So these first 4 tabs are all that you're going to look at. And again, the calendar has the fiscal dates of the year. The terms tab has your instructional days, start and end date. Now, what we're going to do is go to the 2021 school year, and I'm going to go to search. I'm going to go to student. I'm going to click go. there's a lot of students in this high school, obviously. Excuse me. But what that did was it brought up all of my enrollments for the 2021 year. So that would be, in your case, all of your pre-K enrollments for last year should pop up when you select search, student, and click go. Now in here, first things first is you need to enter end dates and end statuses for all of these enrollments. So start at the top, go to the enrollment tab, click on the 2021 school year enrollment, enter the end date, which it has one here. And then this is where it can get a little confusing, is your end status. There are many end statuses to choose from. For PK Head Start purposes, you only probably use two or three maybe. Code 100 is for any PK kiddos that are coming back to your PK Head Start school next year. If you know, for example, Mary, if you know she's coming back to be enrolled in your Head Start program, give her that end status, code 100, returning to same school next year. If she is advancing to kindergarten, you would want to use code 120, transfer to public school in same district. Now let's say one of your kiddos leaves in the middle of the year. Maybe this student transferred, I don't know, maybe decides to go to a different Head Start program or a homeschool or something. There's other codes for that, but 99.9% of you will probably be using code 100 or code 120 for your end statuses, for your enrollments. So just what you need to do is click whichever code you're going to give that student and then click save. That would end their 2021 enrollment so that they are set to go now. If this student is returning to the same school next year, click save. In the same editing enrollment box, you can click new and create a new enrollment in your new calendar for this year. So you'd click the calendar you just created, the 21-22 calendar. So you see that even though we're in this 2021 school year, I'm allowed to enroll a student who's already been enrolled before into the new year calendar with all in the same screen. I don't have to go anywhere to do that. So I want to enter the fields that are in red. The calendar, make sure that you've got the correct year and calendar selected so you don't put them in last year's by accident again. Start date is the first day that the student will be showing up or receiving instruction. And then the service type will be, I'm drawing a blank now, if it's PK, if it's primary or special ed, I can't remember now. I think it's primary for Head Start. Here we are, service type. So this is in the user guide. Primary service type indicates that the child is primary enrolled in this school or district for educational services. A child may have a primary enrollment at one school and secondary or special ed enrollment in another. That should say partial. I'll get that changed. Page 10 in the user guide. Partial. However, a child can never have two primary enrollments. Head Start schools must communicate with local school districts if the child has dual enrollments in Head Start and another school, regarding which primary and which is secondary. So what this is referring to is here on the service type. There's primary, partial, and special ed services. If your child is enrolled in the district, perhaps in the kindergarten level or another program, you need to communicate with that district who has the primary and who has the partial. Because in the system, the student cannot have two primaries. So however that works whether it be an hours thing. So maybe the student spends, whoever has the majority hours gets the primary one, essentially, and then give the partial enrollment to the one that has fewer hours. Special ed services should be selected if the student is in PK and not receiving educational service, but is receiving special education services. So PK kiddos who are only receiving special ed services and no other services would be in special ed. So those are the fields that are required. They're in red, so you can't miss them. The only two that are not in red that you do need to end at the end of the year are the end date and the end status. That's it. And then click save. Oh, and the start status. Forgot that one. Start status would be for this student who is continuing on from your school last year would be code 02. Continued enrollment in the same school, no interruption. That'll be the same code probably for most of your kiddos who are coming back from last year. Code 02, the local start status. Because they're continued enrollment in the same school and there's no interruption there. They didn't transfer out to a home school and come back, et cetera. Now that student has a enrollment for the 2021-22 school year. And you can see the end date is not there because at the end of the year, you'll go in there, enter the end date and the end status. Now that was Mary. So this is again the 2021 enrollments. Let's say Carmen is going on to kindergarten and it is not coming back. So you give Carmen the end date that she needs. And then the local end status would be code 120, transfer to a public school in the same district, and then click save. So then in this case, you would not need to click new to create a new enrollment for her because she is not returning to your school. She is going on to kindergarten. And just as a side note, never use this button, this new enrollment history button. You don't need it. It will create problems within syncing up to the state level if you use that to create an enrollment. Create it with this blue button here. And so on. So Douglas, let's say he is coming back. So you're going to end date and end status his current year's enrollment, and then click save. And then you would click new. Give him a brand new enrollment in the new calendar for this year. Select that grade level. Give him a service type. First day of school in the start status of 02, continued education. Now, that's what I would do if I were you. So pull up your enrollments for last year, go through and end date them all, but at the same time, you can also create enrollments for any returning kiddos at the same time. Once you've done that, then I would take any new kids who are entering your program for the first time, because they would not be listed here because these are previously enrolled students. Any new kiddos, when you're done, go to the index, go to student information, student locator, enter the student who is enrolling in your program, last name, first name, and gender. These three fields are required. And then click search. It's going to search campus's state database for Infinite Campus's state database for any potential matches. A potential match would be a kiddo who has had an enrollment somewhere else in the state, meaning they already have a state ID generated for them. Most likely, if it's a brand new baby who's entering your program at Head Start, they probably do not have an enrollment previously in the state. So in most cases, you're probably just going to create a new student by clicking this button. That's going to assign them a brand new unique state ID. If by some chance you have a Head Start kiddo who was perhaps in a Head Start program somewhere else in the state, and you're enrolling in the first time in your program, you'd still use the student locator. And let's say that this is a match. Let's say that Jay Smith matches the date of birth, and if you hover, it shows you a previous enrollment for that student, Kalispell Public Schools. Let's say that said, Lewistown Head Start, and you know that the student transferred from there. So then if it's a match, you would click on it. And then what you would do is finish populating that federal information that's in red, the race ethnicity info. And then in the same screen, you can create an enrollment for this year for that kid. So you go to that brand new calendar you created, put them in the grade level, PK, give them their service type, first day of school, and then that local start status of, if this, in this case, if the student transferred from a different Head Start program, then you would want to use one of these transfer codes. Let's see. I don't know if that wouldn't be a public school necessarily, but maybe a private school within the state then, as a start code. You wouldn't want to give them the first time receiving educational services code because they're transferring in. So you want to use the transfer code, I'd say private school, 08. And then click save. Now that student will have an enrollment in your brand new calendar. So that's if the student somehow transferred into your program. Let's say the student did not transfer and it's just a brand new enrollment. Click search, enter the name. You're going to create new student. It's going to say state ID pending. It's going to generate that when you click save and complete this. Again, enter the federal information that's in red, so date of birth, federal reporting for race ethnicity info, and then create the enrollment. PK start date, local start status will be 01, first time receiving educational services. If that student has never been enrolled in your program or another program before. And then click save. Then what you can do is when you've enrolled all of your previous kiddos for the new year. You've gone through and picked all the ones who are coming back. Then you've enrolled all the new kiddos who have never been enrolled before. Click on your 21-22 calendar from the toolbar. Go to search, student, and then all of your students will show up. Make sure you've got the right calendar selected. So those two kiddos that we created enrollments now show up in our enrollment list for this coming year. Let's say you accidentally created an enrollment for Mary and you didn't mean to, maybe she's going to kindergarten instead of coming back. Then come in here, click on that enrollment you created and select delete. It will delete that enrollment. Let's say a student you thought was coming back didn't, and either transferred to a different Head Start program or went on to kindergarten. You can still come in here, find their name, and delete that enrollment. Only delete it because the student has not shown up for any days of instruction. Don't delete prior enrollments unless they were absolutely created in error. Let's say I didn't mean to create this enrollment, then I can delete it. So that's how you can create enrollments if necessary. You click on the actual enrollment and then there's the delete button there. So all this information.
You'll also need to remember to change the end status on the previous enrollment if you delete the enrollment of the student.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, so if the student transferred out or advanced to kindergarten, then you would delete the current enrollment and then go to the previous year enrollment and then change that code of end of year returning to the transfer out code to a public school. So you want to do both those things if the student is not returning after all. Okay, a couple other things here to note: legal name changes. So if the student is enrolled in your program and the parents come to you requesting to change the name of the student, it has to be a legal binding document, such as a changed birth certificate. For reporting reasons, we're not going to report nicknames or what people prefer to have their name be called. We need legally binding documented names entered into the system. So to do that, go to index and go to census people. You'll see the identities tab. Now the demographics tab is here and you can edit information here, but it is not recommended. Instead, go to the identities tab. And for example, Mary, if this is a legally binded name change, such as a divorce or an adoption, you would create a new identity. By clicking new, it's going to automatically fill these fields in for you, but then you can change them. Let's say that this, the parents of this person remarried. And then you'll see there's two identities now tied to the state ID. That's important because if someone searches the system for the old name, not knowing there was a change, then the records will show up. So you don't want to delete the old name. You also don't want to edit the old name. You want to create a new name, a new identity. And you can see here the X indicates that that is the current identity. The only time you should edit this identity, I'm going to delete this one because we don't need it. The only time you should edit this already existing identity is if when you created that enrollment, using the student locator, for example, and you misspelled their name. You can come in here and change the name spelling if it was created in there. That would be fine. So any changes that occur inside the identities tab is going to communicate to the demographics tab. As you can see now, the last name has the correction, as does all the other areas inside of Infinite Campus reflect that change. So make your changes there on the identities tab, not the demographics tab. Processing records transfers requests. This might occur for you when a child leaves Head Start to transfer to a school district or another Head Start. The transfer message might be generated by the new district when they enroll that child. It'll say request for you to release, and it'll appear on your process alert screen. So your name, if you're under index, you should see your name here. Click on it and it'll take you to this home screen. If another district has enrolled your student after the student has left your Head Start program and they submit a records request, you'll see the notification here and it will say request for you to release. So you want to click on that hyperlink. It'll be blue like these ones. And then you should have three options in there, but the only response that you should select is release the records. And then those records would be transmitted over to the new school or district. Just a note on end dates. End dates for children should always be the last day the child attended a school, not the days that the records request was received. So hopefully, if you have a kiddo that's leaving your program mid-year, come in here, end that enrollment for the last day of their instruction, not the day that you receive a process alert about their records transfer. So start and end dates are always first and last days of instruction, no matter what they may be. If a student leaves early, they leave early. And so then the last day that they are enrolled for instruction is your end date for them. That end date that we were talking about earlier. Here. And then this is just information on how to search different ways inside of campus to look for student names. You can do wildcard searches or do advanced searches looking for gender, last name, genders, date of births. And then there's reports that you can look at. If you want to look at all of your enrollments on a piece of paper instead of on the side here, you can do that by going to index, student information, clicking on reports, and running any of these reports here. Enrollment summary detail report. They're customizable, so you can choose as of a start date. So you want to look at the enrollments as of whatever date. Pick your calendar for your school. Look at the service types here, check them all if you want. And then you can look at all your students who have specific start statuses to see maybe if those are correct. If you want to just see kids with an O2 start status or an O1, you can select that. Or if you want to look at them all, you click all. And then click next, this little button down here. Hey there.
Can I change filters
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
up in the ceilings?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah. And then on the next page, you can select which of the elements you wish to appear in the report, such as gender, enrollment start date, grade, state ID, and then click your format. So PDF, if you want to put it in an Excel document to manipulate the data, you can put CSV as an option. And then just click generate report. Excuse me. And then it will give you a pop-up window here with details for those enrollments, as well as the date that you generated the report and the time. So that's handy if you want to have a printout document of what is available. So that was when I selected the PDF version. The CSV version would put it in an Excel file. Such as that. That takes us essentially to that's about it as far as what you need to do for a Head Start program. Are there any questions, things that you want me to go over again?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So for Lewis, for Central Montana Head Start, we have 3 centers. Should I create a calendar for each center specifically, or can I just mark it Central Montana Head Start and put all the kiddos that we have under that?
Are they different buildings and facilities, or are they all in one area?
They're in different buildings.
They are. Well, technically, I don't know, you could just do one calendar for them all. You could, but if you feel like it's easier to manage, you can certainly create 3 separate calendars. I would say it's up to you for that reason, for your reasons, as far as however it's easier for you to manage that, I'd say it's up to you. But as far as what we need from you, I would say either way is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions out there? Again, this will be available if you want a refresher and you want to look back at this. I'm going to put it on the website under the AIM webinars tab here. You'll be able to watch it again if you need to.
Could you go over how to do the new calendar, please?
Yeah, the first part of it is creating a new calendar. And what you want to do is go to System Administration under your index. I'm just going to shrink some of these up here. So here's the System Administration module. Open that up and go to Calendar Wizard. And here, what you want to do is select the second option, which is create new calendars by rolling forward selected data. It's going to prompt you to automatically create one for this year, this coming year, so 21-22. So you shouldn't need to do anything there. The name template would automatically populate with this format, so you don't need to change that. Number would always be 1. And then the start dates for the calendar are always going to be the fiscal year dates. So it's July 1st, 2021 of whatever year. So July 1st marks the beginning of the fiscal year for schools. And then June 30th marks the end of the fiscal year for schools. So every single year, this will always be 7/1, and this will always be 6/30, and then the year would just change. Next year will be 22-23. And then what you want to do is select, let's say you've got multiple calendars last year, and like the other question that was just asked, if they want to create one and they have multiple before, you can do that. Just click one of them. Just select one of the calendars that you had last year that have the 2021 date behind it. These are all brand new calendars for this year. You wouldn't want to use those, of course, if you saw a 21-22 calendar in there for some reason. So you'd want to pick them from last year. If you've got multiple programs in there, just pick one of them. Doesn't matter which one. And then select next. And Then you're going to check all these boxes, just check them all. The days and these two boxes here, they won't let you check. So just check all the ones you can. It's going to copy forward that stuff that we looked over earlier, such as grade levels and terms information if it's already in there. And then click Run Wizard. The progress box will show when it says complete. Then just refresh your browser. And then you should see a 21-22 year available, where before it probably wasn't there. It probably ended at 2021. So you want to go to that 21-22 and look for that new calendar that you just created, wherever it could be. This one's kind of confusing because there's multiples in here, but essentially, whatever you copied forward, it's going to give you the same name. So find the calendar that you just created, and you're going to see the name tied to the last calendar or school that it was tied to. It just copied it forward. So then select that, and then go down to System Admin Calendar, which is right above the wizard that you just used. I'm going to unmark that because I marked that for deletion earlier. And now you go to calendar, and it will have the calendar details here. So the start and end date are there that we just entered. Now here, you can change the name of that calendar to be whatever the name of your program is this year and going forward if you want. So let's say it's Adams and start. Just leave that 21-22 year at the beginning. Don't take that out. That's important to leave in there. And then click Save. And then you can refresh again your browser, and then you should see that calendar name change up here in your calendar list. And then once it's created, go back down to System Administration, Calendar, and then look at the other tabs here that we went through to check that that data is accurate. So this is looking good. My start and end dates are correct. July 1st, June 30th. Then go to grade levels, make sure I have PK grade level in there. You guys will not see 9, 10, 11, 12 graders in there. If you do not have a PK grade level in there, click New, enter PK, that's the name of it. Sequence can be 0. State grading level code is set to PK. It should be set to pre-kindergarten, and then click Save. Schedule structure should be 1, or it might say main, depending what was copied for, but you don't need to change anything there. The terms tab is where you're going to enter your days of instruction. So if this is blank, select new term and click full year term and create terms. This is giving me an error because there's already one in there that says full year. So you want a full year term. Select that. These should be automatically filled out, which you don't need to do anything with. And then here are your instruction start and end dates. So the first day of school and the last day of school go here. So it's important again to remember that calendar tab holds the fiscal year dates, which is the bookend dates for the beginning of the school year and the end of the fiscal school year. So not instruction days. And then under the terms tab is where you're going to enter your days of starting instruction and ending instruction that year. So first day of school and then last day of school go here. And then click Save. Now you're ready to move on to the enrollments section and create enrollments. Did that answer any questions you had on that?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? All right, well, feel free to drop me an email if you do have any questions, or give me a call. And again, you can watch this webinar. It'll be posted here probably later today or tomorrow under this collection of webinars. Thanks for joining, and let us know if you need any help.
Thank you.
Welcome.